Welcome, fellow conspiracy theorists, to the podcast that'll make you look twice at all you've been told. This is the Chicken's Eye Podcast, where the truth about every conspiracy theory comes to light. On this episode, we will talk about the space race, the controversial race that set the world into uproar. We will talk about the biggest controversy stemming from it, the moon landing.
In 1969, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong went to the moon, securing the Americans' victory over the Russians during the space race, or did they? Because, as Bill Kaysing argues, the odds of succession landing on the moon were so low that it had been easier to fake the moon landing on a soundstage. Even the Russian spies were about to figure it out.
But Bill Kaysing, he only had a degree in English. He had no knowledge of any rocket science whatsoever. And who was he to decide whether or not the moon landing is fake or real?
But rocket science isn't a necessity for figuring out that something is fake. All he needs is some investigative properties or skills. He was a Marine, so he should have some inside knowledge of the government and should have some information within a government agencies like NASA and how they could possibly fake such a thing.
Well, we can't just rely on anyone to determine whether or not the moon landing was fake. I mean, you can't just, get someone, off the street and be like, hey, is the moon landing fake or not? And then, they can't definitively decide that because they have no, knowledge or proof on that. They don't have, any skills.
But an average person would have a good enough judgment to see that something was suspicious, like within the NASA photos. One of them depicting the shadows of an astronaut going straight forward, but another object right beside them, the shadow is going to a different angle that isn't parallel with the shadow, implying that there might be multiple light sources, as in a stage.
Yeah, but in the same way that, shadows work, the moon is very uneven. It has craters, little hills, whatever you call them. The shadows aren't going to be even as in a smooth surface.
And, and it all depends on perspective, where the angle was taken and whatnot.
Especially how the person is standing and how everything is being set up too.
Yeah, they're gonna appear, a little bit wonky, a little bit unparalleled.
But would unparalleled be exactly? It's practically perpendicular to one another. There should be some similarity, some agency to have each other somewhat parallel. Even if it's just off by a few angles, it shouldn't be just all basically on its side.
Well, the moon is a very different, atmosphere from Earth. So, obviously.
You mean no atmosphere?
Well, it's a very different environment from Earth. So it's not going to be exactly the same as what we have here on Earth because it's a completely different.
But how would
environment?
But how would the no atmosphere affect the photos? Within one other photo, it shows the sky with no stars. There's no atmosphere or clouds to block up the view of the stars itself. Yet there is none within it. And Bill Kaysing argued that this was because that NASA wasn't able to replicate the effects of starlight within a soundstage. So instead of faking it, they decided to leave it unincluded, hoping that the masses won't just question it.
Yeah, but you also have to take into consideration the moon is freaking white, dude. And the sun is going to reflect light, especially because the Earth, the sun, and the astronaut suits, they all reflect light. So if you have a brighter light than something that's dimmer, the dimmer light is not going to be able to be seen. It's like having a flashlight in a lit room. You're not going to be able to see the light.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the camera has to be able to take that quick image, and all these tiny little stars aren't gonna be able to show up on this camera.
Well, let's see. But the moon also has a dark side. So couldn't they travel there to take a more accurate photo of the stars? Why take it in the most brightest place where we can't see them? Why take it in such a location?
I mean, if it's a darker place, then you're not going to see the astronauts. Then it's more questions of they even did.
But we're not photographing the astronauts. I'm asking for a photograph of the stars themselves so we can see with our own eyes.
Okay. When Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, when they landed on the moon, space, it looked black, but this was daytime on the moon. So all the stars aren't going to show up because, the sun and all the light that it's, beaming down on the moon, it's not going to all the stars aren't going to appear on this camera. And if they went to like a darker area on the moon, it's obviously not going to show up even more because of how dark it is.
What about the boots of the moon landing? Because in a museum of air and space, you could see that the boots within the astronaut suit is clearly different than the boots that were imprinted on the moon itself.
So the astronauts, they had two different suits. Well, they had the main suit, which you see at the museum, where the boots that they wore on the moon, they had ridges so they could actually stand, and I bet they were heavier so you could actually stand on the moon without the gravitational pull, like being.
What's the use of the other suit itself? The one without the imprints? Why
So
use it?
you don't get sucked up by space.
Well,
like you're in an atmosphere that you don't know.
And tell me
You'd
this.
rather be safe.
You're getting this information from NASA itself, who can alterate the suits itself, which is in the museum.
Well, okay.
Are you really going to trust them?
They wore they wore a second pair of boots, to like increase the traction, like that they had on the
But
moon, so
why
they're
would
not
they
like
wear the other set
slipping
of
and
boots?
sliding. It's like wearing like like cleats or something. You're not gonna wear cleats like all the time. You're only gonna wear them like on the soccer field, and when you get off the field, you take them off. You put different shoes because it just doesn't fit the terrain. Like when they were first preparing to get on the spaceship, and when they were first preparing to get on board and go to the moon, they didn't need the traction of the boost because that's not the environment they were in. They were on solid surfaces. So when they got on the moon, they probably put the boots on to increase the traction so that it'd make it easier for them to walk on the uneven surface of the moon.
So why do they need an extra pair of boots within the thing when they don't have traction? Would they be wearing the shoes within the entire space ride itself?
I would, like I said, I think the boots probably had some type of weight to it. So, like, if you were in your ship and you had to wear these, like, thick boots while you're, 90-degree angle launching towards the sun, I don't think that's comfortable.
Yeah, it's probably
Right.
not going to make it easier either. So I think, they would just put it on when they get on the moon.
Let me ask you this. How would the astronauts survive within space itself, after all? In space, there's a zone of charged particles known as the Van Allen radiation belt, which is a region surrounding Earth in our magnetic field, which has high energies of particles due to the sun that tend to get divined, says Professor Ojan. What radiation means is when you go into these regions, there's extremely high radiation concerns. So, how would they be able to go on the moon with this radiation, with this endangering them? And I know the suits are going to be there, but the radiation is also going on the ship and outside the suits. How would they carefully go inside without attracting this radiation? Would they have to wear the suits constantly to keep themselves protected?
Well, okay. This radiation belt, in order to get to the moon, you have to think about it. You're not going to be traveling at like 60 miles per hour to get to the moon. You have to be traveling at like a really high speed. And if you're going at these high speeds, then the radiation, it's not even going to affect you that bad because you're going through it so quickly, So it's really not going to affect you. Because it's not like for example, if you're not gonna if you're walking on coals, you're not gonna take your time stepping over all of them. You're gonna try and go a little bit faster so that you have less of a chance of getting injured. And I feel like that's the same concept with the radiation belt. If you're going really fast through it, you're not gonna have as many effects from it.
But there'll still be effects, especially on the moon, which has no atmosphere to protect from these radiation itself, yet they go freely on it with their suits.
Well,
and
the
ship.
radiation, this belt is on Earth, so it's within the Earth's atmosphere, not the moon. So once they leave Earth's atmosphere, then that's it. The belt is gone. The radiation belt is gone.
So you're saying that the moon has no radiation whatsoever, despite it having no atmosphere to protect itself from the deadly particles of the sun itself?
Well, I think that
Huh?
the moon has no atmosphere, and I don't think that the sun's radiation is gonna come all the way there. And the
What do you mean not
astronauts,
come all the way there?
the astronauts have these suits to protect them.
Yes.
Also, the space ships, they also have, radiation shielding and everything.
Like there isn't gonna be a lot of radiation. There isn't gonna be a lot of radiation on the moon because like there's not just like a radiation buildup there. There's nothing to hold it up.
No, but I'm saying that there should be an influx of it from the sun because the particles constantly hitting the moon. There's nothing to protect it. No atmosphere within it.
Which is exactly why all the radiation wouldn't just stay there. It wouldn't just like compile on the moon. Like it's not like the radiation is like destined towards the moon. Not gonna, really affect the astronauts since the radiation isn't just right there.
Well, I'm asking this. What about the flag itself? You see, during multiple petitions where videos or recording devices, we see that the flag is moving slightly, despite it having no atmosphere, no wind. The only reason it would be moving because of the ventilation that is within the set that is creating it.
So the flag had two poles, the pole that you see outside not touching the flag and a pole inside the flag going horizontally. So the flag could actually, be held out so it looks like it's flowing in the wind, because that's America's great thing of their floating, flying flag, whatever. And the wrinkles you see are built in,
Yeah,
and made it seem that it was flying.
That flag has been, folded up and shoved away into the rocket ship for this entire journey, and then when it comes out, you put it on there. And, obviously it's going to look a little wrinkled. It's going to look like it's, flowing a bit, but really it's not. It's just held up by the poles that are there.
Let me tell you this. You got this information from where? From NASA themselves, who would have all the gain from hiding this information from the masses itself. They would obviously construct a lie such as that to delude the belief that the flag is itself moving, because beside the poles, it does have wrinkles, and the flag is holding up, but it still has some movement within it, some swaying, which would be caused by ventilation and such.
No, it doesn't have any movement. It appears like that because it's held up by the poles and the wrinkles, but really it's not moving at all. And NASA has, they don't really have a reason as to why they would fake this moon landing. It's such a great accomplishment. It's such a great mission, and they were trying to win the space race. So, why would they try and fake it? It's obviously achievable. We've sent, rocket ships out into space, and after this mission, we've sent satellites and different, manned spaceships, to go towards the moon. So it really doesn't make sense as to why they would fake this specific
Let me
mission.
ask you this. Look, they have many motivations as to why they should fake the moon landing. Because we're in a Cold War with the Soviet Union, and they had accomplished more through sending animals through outer space, actually getting people there at some point and returning, but we were on the losing edge. We didn't have the technology necessary to reach the moon, so the second best option was to fake it so that we could win, so that we could generate this worldwide claim. But actually going to the moon would be too risky and expensive, so
NASA, probably at the time they didn't have, maybe people thought that they didn't have, the necessary equipment or the technology to be able to do that, but NASA is constantly achieving new things every single day, and they have new scientists and they have new, physicists to create these new, to create these new technologies and equipments and things that will be able to, benefit and support these rocket ships. And so, NASA, they have a lot of funding, so who says that they can't, create these missions and send these people up? And despite the Cold War, they were still making advancements, and they had a good sum of money that they had the possibility to do this.
let me ask you this. During that time, we had such limited technology. Would it be really possible to go to the moon, especially with such limited technology and such a stretch of the Soviet Union and the Red Scare, scaring NASA and people as such? These people who come out as whistleblowers are labeled as conspiracy theorists, denoting the idea, diluting our beliefs, conspiracy, and making you into the masses believing what they say.
How are you going to talk about us not having that good of technology, but there were so many people involved in the space race?
Exactly, and like as the years progress and as time goes on, we constantly make improvements in technology. So who's to say that they didn't already have that technology made and they were just waiting for the time to display them and to send some people to the moon.
You're saying that they already had such technology prepared and they were waiting for the opportunity. But why wait for this opportunity so late? Why let the Russians have some advantage and appear to be winning this whole race, only to last in the end?
Well, because you can have the technology, but you have to actually, make all the pieces work together. You can have the technology, but you have to, put the rocket ship together, test it, and, make sure it's, actually, like, safe for these people to venture on, and then you can finally, send it into space.
But why go to the moon? Why couldn't they do an easier venture such as Russians by sending people into outer space so that it wouldn't be...
Well, I mean, since they were in this Cold War with Russia, and since Russia was only sending people into space, it would be a bigger advancement to send people on the moon because nobody had previously done that. So sending people on the moon would be a better victory than just, we went into the atmosphere. But saying like, we actually stepped foot on the moon and put the flag up there, that, is a greater victory than that.
Despite all the evidence and things as such, despite all your arguments, there's one thing that I have to ask. Why haven't we gone back to the moon? After all, there's surely so much research and scientific things that we can do during the moon. After all, Antarctica is literally just a block of ice. We have camps there to research it and such. And we have means. We have the resources now. We have developed so much as a civilization that we can do it. And we're not the only space program. Notice that isn't the only space program. There are other countries with their own space carrier capable of going to the moon and seeing for themselves to verify that the flag is actually there, that the footprints are there, that everything that NASA says is true. So why haven't they?
The moon landing was more of an accomplishment than something we want to continue in research since it's a lunar rock. So really, what is the big debate? With the real impact of the fake or real moon landing?